I have this assignment where where is it? Here. There's two parts to the project. So essentially, you have to create well, technically, the other students had to post a struct definition, and some other student had to pick their struct and populate that struct. But since that would take another month and a half before the other students got to it, and the teacher knows that I'm not going to just copy and paste from the internet, he gave me permission to write my own struct and use it. So essentially what we have to do is that we have to make a struct, populate the struct, and have that struct be export as a .bin file using fwrite. I'm not sure if I did fwrite correctly, but I think I did. Of course, I am me, so I went and did everything 100,000 times more complicated than it needs to be. Because otherwise, what's the point? I need to challenge myself, right? So one thing that I've been trying to do for the last, 2-3 weeks is essentially take a struct of all the Pokemon, take a CSV of all the Pokemon with their name, their attacks, their special attack, and so on, and their primary type and secondary type. Put that into a struct. Read that from a CSV, put it into a struct, and then do math on these structs. Do math on them to say that this is their total stats. This is the average for an electric type, and so on. So for that to work, I needed to first read from a CSV into a struct, and I wasn't able to do that, and I finally figured out how to do that. So this actually isn't a Pokemon struct. It still has to do with a video game, because I chose video games as my struct. But I finally figured out how to read CSV into a struct. I didn't want to just straight up just type in my thing, so I wanted to read it from a CSV. So what I did was, okay, this is pretty self-explanatory. I'm defining the struct. So I'm defining the game's name, which is for 40 characters, because one of the games that I wrote that I wanted to put in there is really long name. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, which is one of my favorite games. All of the games on that list are some of my favorite games. The developer of the game, the release date, the primary genre, the secondary genre, which it actually can be null, and I have a handler for that. The perspective, as in the is it like first person? Is it VR? Is it side scroller, and so on. And this is technically semi-boolean. Is it multiplayer? Is it not? Without actually using boolean. And it's an online thing similar to that. And this is the developer agency. Did they use Unity? Did they use Unreal? Did they use the source SDK that Valve actually made themselves? And so on. They make a custom one. So I called my struct type by the nickname game, and then here I have it added to my thing. So you just need to add your struct to your thing, your main file. And I'll explain why J is global here once I get to what J is. So in the main file, I open up, here's where I'm handling opening up my file, favegames.csv, And what I did was that I I populated the struct right here, so it's kind of clearer to see if that's like open in OpenOffice. It's kind of clear to see the categories. So here, this is just there because as like a buffer, and also because it's easier to tell what the thing is. This, I just put it as 1. I didn't need to do that, but like I just wanted to keep it so that it's an integer. And here are the names of the games. This one, this Excel equivalent thinks it's a number, but that's actually the name of the game. It's called 140. But here's the developer, the year, and so on. So here's like 3 games that are just, this one's pure platformer, this one's Beat Saber's a pure rhythm game. Stanley Parable is like entirely an interactive game. It really doesn't have a second category. So that's what these as you can see, like even like all of my favorite games are kind of like single player, except for Tetris, which is I still play for the most part in single player. I don't really like that many multiplayer games, but that's besides the point. And yes, oops, my microphone fell. I don't really like many multiplayer games. Anyways, so that's the struct. I'm gonna keep the text file open because I want to demonstrate something. So this is just, I think this is always there. I think it's essentially a null pointer exception. I think that's what that is. Sort of, I think. I'm not sure. But yeah, so I opened up my file as my file, and this was there in one thing that I read, and I guess this just takes the not the pointer, it takes the, I guess, cursor, whatever it's trying to read, back to the start of the file pointer, just to make sure that it's reading from the start. So I finally found a proper thing that was telling me how to do this, but with deep searching with Struct. So first define a character string that will hold the entirety of this. So I don't know how many characters this line is, but I'm guessing it's less than 200. So I don't, but with how long this game's name is, there's not that many games with longer names, and same things with this, there's not going to be that many longer things, so that's enough. But if you need a longer, if each line will be longer than 200 characters, then you want to increase that value. So I don't know why I put 1024 there. I was just copying guess what there was there. But that just takes in whatever and puts it into 200. That actually can be 200. I don't know why I wrote 1024 there. This one, I'm not sure why it's a pointer, but that thing, it didn't work if it wasn't a pointer, so I'm going to keep it as a pointer. This is just the character delimiter, which is like, it's a comma separated value file, so it's separated by the comma, so I'm just saying the delimiter is the comma. This I is essentially the I that controls the actual count of the array of structs. So here, this one just counts the number of lines in the file, and it says that if it approaches for every line that isn't at until it reaches the end of the function, So this is like, if it's not the end of the function, then do this. If the character is not a new line, if the character is a new line, then increase the counter. So this is essentially just a counter. Here's where we actually define the array of structs. In this array of structs, I have to, of course, add a little bit of padding. So this is just j+1, it's like for that extra character. Oh my god, it's 7 a.m. already. I didn't even realize that. Wow, I've been doing this for okay. Yeah, I've been awake all night. Sorry, I just realized this. I just look to my left and I see my window and I see the sun is up and I'm like, oh, okay, it's 7 a.m. Okay, that's normal. Okay, I screwed up my sleep schedule again. Anyways, so here's again the rewinding to get the cursor thing back to the start, the beginning of the file pointer, because it was doing things here. So like here, this fgets this takes the parameters of your actual the line that you are considering, how many characters that is, and the pointer to your file. And if it's not null, as in if it isn't the end of the function, I guess I can also do something the end of function EOF here. This is what I had the issues with. So I actually tried doing this with pointers, but I think because it's an array of structs, and arrays are already themselves pointers, it didn't like it. So I had to just use this normally, even though I just wanted to use pointers just to get practice with pointers. And I guess trying to use pointers, I figured out that you can't use pointers here. So ironically, I learned that you can't use pointers in this case, so I did learn something about pointers. So games, this is just for that index I, and I plus plus the thing at the end, and I use str copy because you have to, this is a string value, so put the struct of my line up until that delimiter, so it's the start of my line up until the delimiter into that, and then here do the same thing on using null because you don't want to call things, you just want to continue with that my line until the next, whoops, that's my microphone falling again, until the delimiter, and you put it into the developer thing. This one is an integer, so you need to use a toy, the a2i. You want to do the string to an integer and put it into the delimiter. I mean, put it into the release, which is an integer here, because that's the release year. And you basically do the same thing for everything. At the very end, you I++ this, and then it, loops again, and the fgets will, this will automatically go to the next line, and it does everything up until it reaches the end of the line. And I think that's what it's doing. I mean, my code works, so I think that's what it's doing. So I'm closing the file. I'm closing my file here because I'm done reading from it. Here, this is where I am doing the part of the assignment that's asking me to, wait, I need some modules. Here, I'm doing the part of the assignment that, that's asking me to do this stuff, saving it to a bin binary file. So I basically create a file pointer bin struct and do an fopen, and right, I think this is writing binary, that's what the WB stands for. That's what the zybook says to do. But this just doing this will just create the file. So if instruct does not equal null, this is the same null pointer exception thing. I think that's what it is again. And then all I need to do is write this. So this is your array that you want to. This can take an array. So you want to put the array there. Size of the type of array. In this case, the type is my struct. So I just need to use the struct name. Then how many elements are there in that array? I think, which is j, because there are j element parts of the array, and the file that I'm writing to, and then I close that. So this part is actually just something that I wanted to do on my own. I just wanted to be able. This is just me testing out different parts of it. So essentially I this is why I define j globally, so that I can import that number of j's into this temporary struct. So here, this is a standard. I'm getting the game name and stuff. So enter a video game, and I'm using FgetS here because as you can see, some of these have spaces. I think the only issue that I would have with this is if the game name itself had a comma in it, in which I don't think it's possible to work around that. I wonder how many things that would break if a game had a comma. I guess there is a way to handle it, but I guess they're not using structs, so I guess I don't know how anyone would handle it if they were trying to do that in C. But yeah, so enter a video game name. So you can enter a game name, and again, it's the 40 thing and standard input. And this is the actual, and this is something that actually this took me like about 2 minutes to debug, because it took me like 5 minutes to debug because I couldn't figure out why my strcomp was not working, and it's because I completely forgot that FgetS also takes in the new line. It also writes the new line into the character string. So what this does is saying that if this length -1, so if that last character, I guess, because I guess the very last one is that /0 thing, is the new line character, then set that equal to 0 so that it doesn't screw up the strcomp. So here's again the entire equal to 0, it's the counter. So if the game name now without the new line is the same as games.a, and I'm using a here because I use I here and j is global. Could have used k, but I didn't feel like it. Then break so that you can count to the I and increment it, so you can find out what value this is. If a is equal to j, then if else, so if this does not find that, and if this does not find it across all of this, and then you get to the last one, then just print an invalid entry and return. Otherwise, if this is not there, I'll show you what will happen. So, oh, I don't know what that happened there, how that happened. This was working right before I started the recording. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. This was working and now it's not working. maybe it doesn't like that I have that else statement in there. Maybe unknown type games. It's right there. Now you get to watch me debug. It's right there. Oh, I have to uncomment this one too. That's why I would comment that one too. So let's see. Okay, Tetris. So Tetris was that, and then the very last thing in my thing is Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. So Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. So it gets that. It's fine. Gets the very last object. But watch this. If I type something that's not there, look at that weird ASCII madness that goes on. I don't even know how it gets to the last thing. So essentially, this is my handler for it. This is my handler for not having it. So it just says invalid entry and it returns. So that's how I handle not having it. So then all it does is just come here and say, it just gives the details of the game. So this game was, the name of the game was made in the year by this developer. And here, if it's not, if this is null, it just, if the genre 2 is null, like if it's just a single genre game, then it just prints the one genre. Otherwise, it prints both of the genres. So if the game, so some games were made in a custom game engine, especially with older games. Tetris I put in various because there's 100 trillion different varieties of Tetris in every game engine imaginable. And then some, there's just so many different implementations of Tetris. But so for instance, one of my favorite games, Transistor, was made, it's a single game, but it was made on the Supergiant Games' own game engine. They built their own game engine for it. So it's not made in Unity or Unreal or Source or whatever you want to use. So I just have custom to handle those situations, and then it says it was made by using a custom built game engine. Technically I can, because I want to have because you can't put using the game engine here, it doesn't make any sense. So this handles that. Here this is just the perspective, and this is if it's multiplayer, then say it has multiplayer capabilities. Otherwise, say it does not have multiplayer capabilities. And if it's an online game, just continue the sentence and say it has online capabilities. Otherwise, just say it doesn't. But that's essentially what this one is. It's actually fairly quick to describe. Took me, I guess I started with this around 3 a.m. and finished around 7 a.m. It took me about 4 hours to do. Most of that was Googling how on earth am I supposed to do this Structs stuff. But I'm glad that I finally figured it out, because it took me so long. I don't even think you can consider me figuring it out, because literally it was where was it? It's not Stack Overflow. It's this one. It is Stack Overflow, but it's not that Stack Overflow. It's this thing. It finally came across this one, and whatever they used here was exactly what I needed. It was the perfect code So thank you, whoever this person is. And yeah, so one other thing I want to show you is that if I add another game, let's say, I think, okay, Luigi's Mansion, Ultimate by Nintendo. It was made in, I think, 2001. It is a RPG, and it doesn't have a second type. It is third person point of view, does not have multiplayer, does not have online, and was probably built in a custom game engine, because that's Nintendo for you. Then I save that, Control S, and then if I come back to this, do this, and type in Luigi's Mansion, this should work right there. So the only thing that this wouldn't work is like the grammar, and that would be too complex to figure out to do that, but that's more of a grammatical issue and not a programming issue. But my point is that you can add on whatever to the CSV file, and this is still able to handle it. Yeah, so that's essentially this. That's essentially me doing this. I'm probably going to do linked lists later on, because that also that's an extension of this assignment. Probably should have done that before I made this video, but like I figured that I might as well do this first, because I think linked list would mean excuse me, I think linked list would mean I'd have to do something a little bit more complex. But yeah, that's essentially that. Thanks for watching. Hope this helped you out. Bye.